You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome into another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. How you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Just got home a little while ago from a softball game, just kicking it around with some buddies, and now I get to be here talking football on a Friday night. So things are good, man. Kids are in bed. The house is quiet. Like, I can't ask for more right now.
Maybe a football game on, but
maybe a football game,
yeah.
But then I wouldn't be talking. I'd be watching.
There you go. Guys, we got a great episode for you tonight. We're going to hit up some of the recaps from last night. Then, of course, it's the Friday show, so that means we are talking all about the games coming up this weekend. And as you know, Kevin and I are going to go through some of the spreads, go through some of the games there, call the shots on players that we like, some matchups we like, that we don't like, things like that, to try and help you out with some of your fantasy prospects there. But Kevin, what did you think? There was a pretty interesting game last night, right? Like, went down to the wire. It may not have been necessarily like great overall football, but it was a very entertaining game to watch.
Yes, very entertaining. Definitely a different type of quarterback play than, the premier guys. But Taylor Heineke did a good job. Like, he managed the game well. He found the open receiver. He seems to understand that Terry McLaurin is his bread and butter, as we saw a career high in catches Thursday night from Terry McLaurin. So that's good to see if you're an owner of F1. So that way you don't have to hesitate starting him, right? We saw that Taylor Heineke is going to target him. But it was entertaining. I'm not quite sure if that was offsides at the end of the game. I know that's kind of the roaring question that's going around right now, but nonetheless, it was very entertaining. And if Darius Slayton catches that touchdown instead of letting it slap off his hands, this isn't even a question.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It would have been easy peasy lemon squeezy for him had he just made that catch. Lots of kind of different things playing out there. And it was like I said, it was a very entertaining game to watch, but had a few questions answered and a lot more questions kind of revealed there as well, looking at it. So, Daniel Jones, probably the best game that I've ever seen Daniel Jones play in. He looked good, right? Was able to make some plays, things like that. Like, we didn't see a lot of the mistakes that he makes over the course of the games, right? But played a mistake-free type of game, really kind of looked good. Sterling Shepard looking really good, which makes me happy, him being an Oklahoma guy, and has been a guy that I've been hoping to see this kind of come forth from him, and he looked really good. But a lot of questions around these running backs on both of these teams, right? Both of these guys were first or second round picks in your fantasy drafts. And, what are you looking to do if you've got Saquon or you've got Antonio Gibson?
Well, I think Antonio Gibson will be all right. I think the mindset was, and the Giants play this way, right? They play a soft secondary. They kind of beg you to pass the ball, and they try and stop the run best they can. Now, at the end of week 1, Melvin Gordon got him, right? Like, they didn't fill their assignments well, and he ripped off a 70-yard run. Realistically, Antonio Gibson didn't have a bad game. He averaged like 4.9 yards per carry. That's not a bad game. It seems like they struggled to understand when to feature him, and they were moving the ball through the air fairly well, but they started off extremely slow, right? They had the first 2-3 drives of the game. The football team did not look very good at all. And then they started to kind of catch their rhythm, but they were playing catch up because the Giants were able to kind of jump out in front of them a little bit. So I do think that took Gibson out of the game script a little bit more than what they had intended. And then we saw JD McKissick come off with a couple great plays, receiving the ball and being able to rip one down the field. So I'm not panicking if I'm a Gibson owner. Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with the production I've gotten through the first 2 weeks, but it's not it's not life altering, right? Like I'm not looking to sell him off. Saquon, you need a good week out of Saquon to be able to sell him off at this point, because right now he's at his low, right? Like people drafted him expecting him to be back to normal, and he's just not. So Saquon owners, you got to be stuck with him for another couple weeks before you try and move him. Otherwise, you're getting bottom dollar for him right now.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And that was one of those that he just, it's, and you and I were talking a little bit before that, like he doesn't look at all like Saquon of old, and that offensive line isn't really doing him any favors with this game at all either. So it'll be very interesting to see how this one kind of plays out. I think he may, and he's got some easier schedules as this thing plays out over the next couple of weeks. So this really is going to be kind of the prove it time for him, I think. And this will get you a really good idea on what you can expect going forward. But I know that there was a lot of folks out there that, the question was, do I even start Saquon Barkley in this Thursday night game? And I know a few managers out there that decided to leave him on the bench. And quite frankly, you're probably glad that you did, depending upon who else goes out there and starts for you Sunday, Monday. But that performance there did not do you any favors.
Yes, absolutely. If you were hoping he fell into the end zone, right? That's what you needed, is Saquon to fall into the end zone and at least kind of justify some of this. But he hasn't even been featured in the red zone, and so you're struggling right now with the schedule easing up. If you are a believer in Saquon, now's the time you want to try and get him, see if the owner who has him is frustrated, and take on that challenge. I think you're spot on, Derek. We were talking about this. He's still working through this, right? Like he's still a little slow coming in and out of his cuts. That 41-yard run that he had, Derek, you said this earlier, 2 years ago, that's a house call. Like he's not getting caught right there. He beats the safety past that point and just blows past. He does not pull up and kind of trot out of bounds after 41 yards. So he's still trying to get comfortable. But I think the Giants aren't doing him any favors because they have him in and out of the damn lineup so much. Like the guy can't get a rhythm, and he is a rhythm running back. He's not going to be, coming in cold and expecting marvelous things to happen. He's not that type of back. So I guess the jury's still out. It is unfortunate because you have spent, top 2 round picks on either one of these guys, and they've kind of put up 2 meh performances here to start the season.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a couple of questions coming in, so we'll hit that up before we get into some of the game breakdowns of the week. And first question coming in from Kyle on the YouTube. It's an 8-man PPR. He's got to start 3 wide receivers and 3 running backs. Should he trade Tyson Williams and Chenault for Higgins in a PPR? He needs a wide receiver help. He also has Jamar Chase, so he doesn't know. There's no shot Tyson gets in my lineup anytime soon. That really kind of depends on what you think there. If you've got Jamar Chase, I'm not doing a wide receiver stack with him and Higgins to put in there. Like you're limiting your upside. And if it's a PPR, like that's where Chenault can make some hay there. But I'm very curious on your thoughts here.
I understand that this might be the trade that you have in front of you, but I definitely try and find a different dance partner. And I like Higgins. Like this isn't an anti-Higgins thing. This is more. It is a gamble to start 2 receivers from the same team, no matter what. I mean, even people who would draft Amari and CeeDee Lamb from the Cowboys, like I still go, maybe you try and flip Amari for an Allen Robinson or somewhere who's going around that same draft area, right? And see if you can get equal value for it. But I'm not a Laviska Shenault believer. I refuse to do it. I don't believe the hype here. Tyson Williams, good Monday night showing in the first half. He disappeared in the second. Greg Roman's come out and said the days of one back is done, and they plan on featuring multiple backs. So that tells me you're going to see some Williams, you're going to see some Lat Murray, and you're going to see some Devonta Freeman since he got elevated to the active roster here this week too. So where Tyson Williams, you thought you were kind of getting something there, maybe a 2-headed monster. I I don't know, man. And if you don't think he's going to touch your lineup, now's the time, right? You make hay while the sun's shining, and he came off a really strong Monday night performance. Now's the time to trade him. But instead of a Higgins, I mean, instead of a Higgins, maybe one of the Steelers receivers, if you don't have one of them. And that's the problem with 8-man is everybody has good talent. So if you can get your hands on a Deontay Johnson or Juju, that might be an option.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of doing the, starting 2 wide receivers on the same team. Same thing. Like I'm not a big fan of starting 2 running backs off the same team. Because if you happen to get that week where they both blow up and hit, it's tremendous, but you're ultimately limiting your upside and limiting your ceiling by doing that. Just because inevitably you're going to have one of those games where the game script could go one way or the other. So yeah, I'm not looking to make that trade. And I think your advice of finding a different dance partner is probably the best way to go. Another question coming in, J-Rob or Javonte Williams, who to start week 2 in a PPR format?
J-Rob. I still think it's Melvin Gordon, and Javonte Williams' time will come. Honestly, hell, maybe it is. I mean, you could take a flyer on Javonte if he's going to be your flex. I wouldn't do it as a running back 2, but if he's your flex, you could take a flyer on that, figuring the Broncos are going to be playing from a positive game script most of the game. The Broncos are also they're pretty damn good against the run. So James Robinson's going to have a hard time getting going, on top of what we saw from Carlos Hyde last week when the Jaguars got behind. James Robinson was nowhere to be found. So that's another reason where maybe you do go Javonte Williams. You need your running back too.
Yep. So I'm very much of the same opinion that you're going Javonte Williams here, right? Like you look at the timeshare on that one, and it was close enough that the backfield was pretty split there on that one. And I think that as the Broncos get ahead in these games, they're going to, they're going to kind of utilize that Javonte Williams when they've got that very positive game script. Melvin Gordon's still going to be in there and still be featured, and he's going to have the lead role on that one. But the Broncos, I have a feeling, are going to be running the ball a ton in the second half and just kind of swapping those 2 backs out. I don't love the fact that J-Rob is having to go up against that Broncos defense. So it's Javonte Williams for me pretty easily on this one. I'm also not necessarily sold on how Urban Meyers is planning on utilizing that backfield. Like I am not at all sold on what that offense is looking like. They're going to have to put together a week or 2 before I'm feeling comfortable starting that way. All right. So Kyle chimes back in. I don't know if they'll always start as my wide receivers. I have Ayuk as well. Definitely not going to start him this week though.
You need to start Ayuk this week. I like Ayuk this week. Like I like the fact that it just seems like a Kyle Shanahan thing to do. Like, yes, we slapped you on the wrist and you didn't play week 1, but we're going to get you back in there and things are going to open up. And now we're going to force feed you the ball, 10 times in week 2. So you'll have 7 receptions for, 90 yards and a touchdown, most likely. Like that just seems like a very Kyle Shanahan thing. So I'm not scared of Brandon Ayuk if he's an option for me. And right, wrong, or indifferent, you drafted him probably in the 5th or 6th round, depending on your league size. And
in 8-man, he probably drafted him in the 8th or 9th.
So he drafted him late. Yeah. So 8, 9, but I could go with Ayuk. So
yeah, especially being a wide receiver 3, right? Like you're playing a wide receiver 3 or a flex type of role. I could get behind that one as well. But yeah, I would still look at somebody else other than Higgins, because you're going to get yourself inevitably into a rotation there where I think you're going to have to guess as to who to start. And it's going to be kind of just that frustrating deal where you've got multiple guys on the same team and just trying to pick which one goes in this week. And when you guess wrong, it's going to hurt. So I would look for a different dance partner there, Kyle, for what my 2 cents are worth. Alrighty, Kevin, I think it's time to head on over into the games and start talking about some of those. Folks out there watching, listening, we very much appreciate these questions coming in. We love answering these questions, so throw them in there. We'll get to them in between these when we're switching up in between games there. But absolutely, throw your questions out. We love to help out. We're all about trying to get you guys that cash and trophies. So throw the questions out, and we'll absolutely take some time and answer those for you. First game of the week. Oh, hang on. We're almost there. There we go. First game of the week. We've got New England going to the Jets, and the spread is New England's favored by 5.5 points. The over-under on this one was 43.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think I'm going to take the over. I think this New England defense is for real. I think the Jets are going to have a hard time moving the ball, both through the air and on the ground. New England tries to take your best player away, so Corey Davis is definitely a sit for me this week. I am not playing Corey Davis in any leagues. Zach Wilson is a sit for me also, because that defense does wreak havoc on rookie quarterbacks. So I think that there's a lot of things leaning in New England's favor, and quite frankly, this just seems like a statement piece after their game last week against the Dolphins. So I expect New England to come out and be able to do some good things here. So I'm taking the over because I don't like that 43.5 number. And I think the Patriots cover this by a touchdown.
Yep. That's kind of how I see that one as well. I do love a couple of matchups here, though. Not any on the Jets side of the ball, unfortunately. But I do absolutely love Damian Harris in this matchup. I think he is going to have a very, very big game. And so, maybe look to go try and acquire him if you can in your leagues, make a trade, things like that. A lot of folks didn't necessarily notice his pretty decent week one there. And I think that you're going to see a lot of that continue this week. As far as some of the pass catchers go on that one, I do like Jacoby Myers. I do like how he looked out there. So I'd be looking to potentially start him as well, depending upon your roster makeup there as well. But yeah, the Jets, I'm staying away from that one as far as I can.
Yeah, keep an eye on the Jonnu Smith injury designation too, right? He was missed a day of practice, was limited. He's currently listed as questionable. So if you have Jonnu on your roster, just make sure you're paying attention so that way you can pivot off if you need to. And really, if you have Hunter Henry, definitely plug him in this week. I think Henry will see a lot of targets coming his way.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that one as well. I don't know that I've got anything else kind of to talk about with this one here. So before we move on to our next game, we got another question coming in here. Ray from YouTube is saying CEH versus the Ravens, Elijah Mitchell versus the Eagles, or Kareem Hunt versus the Texans. Looks like it's standard scoring, and it's for his flex position.
Standard scoring. Man, that Kareem Hunt versus the Texans looks so good. Like,
yes, it does.
You can just see that Chubb will take kind of the first half workload. Kareem Hunt will take the second half workload as the Browns learn from their mistakes last week and continue to learn how to finish games. So Hunt is probably my go-to. Mitchell's a pretty close second. He's the one who's been working with the ones all week in San Francisco. So that leads me to believe that he's still the primary back for now, right? Not to say that Trey Sermon won't get some run, but to start out, Elijah Mitchell, I have no issues if you'd rather pivot to that direction and go him. But CEH versus the Ravens is probably the guy that I'm going to fade this week. Like, I just see this being more of a pass happy game with the Ravens being down some cornerbacks here. We saw what Derek Carr was able to do it through the air against this Ravens team this past Monday night. I expect the Chiefs to be able to do more of the same, and they're probably not going to be able to try and bracket Travis Kelce the way they did the Ravens did to Darren Waller, because if they're bracketing Kelce, Tyreek's going to take it over the top. So I just don't see this being a CEH game script. So Hunt, then Mitchell, then CEH for me this week.
Yep, I see it that way as well. I'm not necessarily as strong as you are on Elijah Mitchell this week. Again, I think that you're going to see the Niners really come out and have very much a full-on running back by committee, and this is going to be Kyle Shanahan is going to just ride the hot hand. So if one of these guys breaks a run, they look good early on in the game, you could see them take over that share on that thing and not let the other backs back in there. And I think really to start that one off, you're going to see kind of a 2 or 3 headed monster roll out there. So I think you're going to see some equal run of these guys early in the game. And then whoever looks the best is going to get the run from there. So I'm taking Kareem Hunt there. We've also got SS Basketball Pod. Kenny, good friend of the show, has been on a couple of times chiming in there. My preview, glad Kenny Galladay can't let me down on Sunday because he already did. Ouch. So sorry that you had to deal with that, Kenny.
Jones is trying to find that chemistry with Galladay, and it's very clear that because of the hamstring injury that Galladay suffered in camp, that they did miss out on some quality reps together. I'm not giving up on Galladay, but he's definitely more of a flex option now than the wide receiver 2 option you possibly drafted him for. But I do think his time will come, and we will see Sterling Shepard and Kenny Galladay kind of dominate those targets, and then you'll see the occasional deep shot to Slayton if he decides to actually catch it.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And then Kenny saying that I'm giving him a few more weeks. Tough defenses matchups early too. They have had a couple of tough defensive matchups there.
Kenny G was never the play against the Broncos in week 1. And I'm going to pivot real quick. I know we should have talked about this earlier, but this Washington defense is not the defense that a lot of people drafted as a top 2 defense in their fantasy leagues, right? Like, they look soft. And yes, they got to Daniel Jones a couple times when they absolutely had to and pushed him back. But it's not the dominant force that we saw finish 2020 and go into the playoffs and really give Tampa Bay their toughest game in the playoffs last year. They look like they're not quite clicking yet. So yes, Kenny G had some tough matchups. I do think brighter days are ahead for him. So now is definitely not the time to sell him off. If you want to sit him for a week or two and you have a better option, completely understand that. But I wouldn't necessarily just get rid of him.
Absolutely. Alrighty, next game up, we got the Broncos and Jacksonville. Denver is a 5.5 point favorite. Over under on this one, 44.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I feel about this the same way I feel about the Patriots game. I feel like the road team's going to come in and win by a touchdown. I like the over here. We will very much like with the week 1 matchup with the Broncos and Giants. I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to come out. He's going to manage the game. They're going to have some long drives, but they've been long drives resulting in points, right? Like, Teddy Bridgewater isn't leading him down the field on a 6-7 minute drive and then stalling out at the 40-yard line and having to punt. He's getting them in areas to score points, which is more production than the Broncos have seen out of that position lately. So I like this matchup for them. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have to try and throw his way back into this football game, and that Denver secondary is for real. So you might see a 2-touchdown, 2-interception performance from Trevor Lawrence, but that all helps you get there. So I like the over, and I like the Broncos by a touchdown again.
Absolutely right. When you look at it, the Broncos ranked, they're ranked 31 against points given up to the wide receivers. So only one team better than them at giving up points. As far as points allowed there, the quarterback they were pretty stingy on against Daniel Jones last week, as well as a top half defense in points allowed there. And they were the best ranked team in giving up runs. So this is going to be one of those that if Jacksonville is going to stand any sort of chance, this is going to be Trevor Lawrence dropping back and having to rip the ball off probably 50, 60 times to try and stay in this game. I don't like the matchups that any of these wide receivers have, right? I don't like Chark on the outside. I don't like Marvin Jones on the outside. We've kind of already covered Shenault trying to go up and through the middle on that. I'm not a big fan there. I don't know that I don't like the way that they utilized James Robinson last year and last week and how this offense looked against a Houston team that they made Houston's defense look good. And as we know, that's not the case. So I see the Broncos walking away with this one. I'm taking the points and I'm taking the over. And I think that in the second half, you're going to see Denver just move the ball on the ground, kill the clock, and you'll see these running backs from Denver put up a whole lot of points. All righty, let's go ahead and head on over to the Buffalo Bills going to Miami. Spread on this one is Buffalo by 3.5. The over-under 47.5. What are your thoughts here?
My first thought is, if you are gambling and putting money towards football, 3.5 is a terrible number to bet on.
Yeah.
It is. You're asking for problems. There's so many ways for 3.5 to get covered, and the way the NFL is with their average win differential over the last 2 decades being something like 2.9 points or something like that. So 3.5 is a terrible number. That being said, I think I like Buffalo by 3.5. But I think it's going to be the under. Like, I want to take over with Josh Allen. Like, I want to take the over here, but they just did not look good against Pittsburgh. And I get it. Miami's defense is not the Steelers' defense, so maybe Buffalo comes out on a mission here and just marches the ball up and down the field. But I just don't see Miami being able to put up enough points to get to 47 on this one. So I do think I like the under, but I like the Bills to cover.
Right. One of the things that's very intriguing is the wide receiver cornerback matchup, where you'll probably see Stephon Diggs and Xavier Howard paired up against each other quite a bit there. And that's a very intriguing matchup. Xavier Howard is definitely one of the better cornerbacks in the league. So he may slow down Stephon Diggs there a little bit. I don't think that he's going to necessarily stop him, anything like that. I think Stephon Diggs is still going to have a pretty decent fantasy day, but I think he will be kind of a little bit slowed down there. So, I don't see the Bills putting up a ton of points in this one either. So I'm going to take the under. And I don't even necessarily like the line on that. So I would take the Bills on the money line and the under if I'm going on this one.
I think Gabe Davis is a nice DFS play this week.
Yep.
And I can see him getting into the end zone, 70 yards and in the end zone. So cash game, right? Like, you're not doing big tournaments with him or anything like that. But if you're doing any type of a cash game, I think Gabe Davis is honestly pretty safe this week. And I don't have his value here right in front of me, but I'm guessing he's pretty inexpensive too. So you're able to kind of value up there at that position and then spend your money elsewhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment as well. Let's go ahead and head on over to the San Francisco 49ers. They go to Philadelphia. Spread on this one, 3.5, over under 48.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm getting worried because I like so many road teams this week. Like, but I like the Niners here. I like the over. I do think the Eagles are going to be able to do some things. I think Jalen Hurts is dynamic enough that he's going to be able to keep some of that San Francisco pass rush at bay for a while. But I expect both teams to kind of put up numbers. So I'm thinking the over here. And I think the Niners are a better team. The 3.5, man, you could see Philly with a backdoor cover to get it within 3 and make it a game. But I think the Niners learned from week 1, letting the Lions back into the game. So this time, if they jump out, I think they're going to find a way to slam the door. So I'll take the Niners to cover the 3.5, and I'm taking the over in this one.
Gotcha. You look at this one, and it's the fact that the Eagles had a very good showing last week against Atlanta, and Atlanta was an offense that we all kind of thought was a little bit high powered. There was going to have to, if they were winning games, it was going to be on what that offense was going to do and not necessarily on that defense. So it's, man, as much as I want to take the Niners here, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Niners, but it's really, really close for me. I do think that Jalen Hurts will pose problems for this Niners defense. They gave up a ton of points to Jared Goff. They gave up a ton of points to the running backs from Detroit. And neither one of those positions were ones that we were necessarily worried about going into the season, and thought that the Niners would be the ultimate DFS play going into week 1, and it didn't happen. So I'm going to take the over, and I will take the Eagles to cover on this one. So it's a tight one though for me. Let's go ahead and hit up the Rams and the Colts. The Rams go into Indianapolis, 4.5 point favorites for the Rams, over under 46.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Rams. I like the road team here, and I think they cover this 4.5. I'm not sure why it's only 4.5. Like, I just was not impressed by what the Colts did week 1 with Seattle, and here they are with another NFC West team, arguably better than the Seahawks, and definitely better defensively than what the Seahawks are currently at this stage of the season. So Jalen Ramsey will do his typical shutdown type things. The Colts' only chance is if they keep running the ball, where the Chicago Bears had to kind of give up on the run because they got down and just couldn't keep the ball moving. This is the Colts' really only shot in this game, is pound the ball with Jonathan Taylor, sprinkle in some Nyheim Hines, and make this offense hold up against Aaron Donald. But if Carson Wentz is stuck having to drop back 35, 40 times in this game, it's lights out. This is LA all the way. So I like the over. I think this offense for LA is dynamic. Cooper Kupp is Matt Stafford's favorite target through week 1, right? Now, Robert Woods was not as big of a factor. I think that'll balance out a little bit more. But in week 1, it was Kupp, then it was Higbee, and then it was Woods. I think we see this balance out a little bit because the Colts linebacker play is enough to kind of keep Higbee at bay. And I think Robert Woods actually has the better matchup here against the Colts as far as the fantasy perspective goes.
Yeah, I like that one as well. Zach Pascal could be a sneaky play in this one because I think that you'll see Michael Pittman see a lot of Jalen Ramsey when it's all said and done.
If he plays, right? Pittman and Paris Campbell both popped up questionable after not having anything on the injury report all week long. So they have to play. But if Pascal's the only one out there, then he's out the window too, because that's who Ramsey's,
right.
Here, I'll just kind of hang out in this guy's back pocket, and then he's going to be done for the game.
Right. But if Pittman plays, he'll catch Jalen Ramsey, and at which point I think that Zach Pascal can be a sneaky DFS type of play. But yeah, I see the Rams absolutely just feasting on this secondary that allowed Tyler Lockett to go just crazy last week. And so yeah, I'm liking this one, but I think I'm going to take the under on this one, and I am going to take the Rams to cover. So let's go ahead, and we've got the Raiders and the Steelers. Pittsburgh, the home team, is favored by 5.5. The over-under is 48.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I could understand an argument either way as far as the over-under goes, right? With what the Steelers did to the Bills offensively in week 1, I get it. Can the Steelers cover Darren Waller? And that's the thing. I think the Steelers win the game. So I'm taking the Steelers, but probably the money line. I don't know. I don't know that the Steelers are going to cover the 5.5 here. I like the under, and I like the Steelers money line, but I do think Vegas finds a way to cover the 5.5.
Yeah, I'll co-sign on that one as well. Yeah, and I think this one, again, it's going to be one of those that it'll be interesting to see with the Raiders what they do, because this very well could be a Peyton Barber charting out there as the starting running back, with Kenyon Drake being the third down back like we saw there. And you and I were talking a little bit about that pre-show before we went on there, that Kenyon Drake is the better back there. So I don't know why that there was some news that I saw coming out there, things
That's
like that.
That's why you bring him in, right? It's why they paid him. And not to step over you, but what's the point of bringing Kenyon Drake in and paying him the amount of money that you did, damn near starting running back money, to come in and now just be the third down back and let Peyton Barber take over first and second down. Like this is the part of the Las Vegas Raiders that is just mind blowing. And it has to drive you bat-s crazy as a Raiders fan, because that makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with you. The one that I'm really interested to see is, do we see the Bryan Edwards carryover and that connection we saw right there towards the end of that game with Derek Carr? Can that come to fruition, and can we see that that come to light there a little bit more? Because I don't know that you can target Darren Waller 20 times a game. Like I don't know how you can realistically do that and win ball games doing it that way if you're going to be that one-dimensional.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to see 19 targets again, but I could see him with 13 to 15 targets still. Like,
yeah,
Bryan Edwards, I think he earned himself a couple extra packages. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try and look his way a little bit more, and he's the primary target on a couple different things that the Raiders are going to try and do. So, he's a guy that I went out and stashed in a couple different leagues this week. Not that I'm looking to start him right away, but if this was his step, and he's built like the X, right? They brought Henry Ruggs in. Yes, he was drafted as the first wide receiver in that draft class, but he was never going to be the dominant X receiver.
No, but he has the makeup to be an excellent Z type of receiver. Like,
absolutely he does. And Edwards has the makeup to be an X. So they could have something here, right? Ruggs still is hit and miss, but Edwards is a guy that I'm definitely taking a peek at for season long. And I do expect him to see probably some more targets tossed his way, 7-8 targets maybe.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of questions coming in here. Alan on YouTube is saying, at flex, it's a PPR this week. Should he start Darrell Henderson or Melvin Gordon? I'm taking Melvin Gordon on this one.
I'm taking Henderson because I don't think Sony Michel is going to see the workload just yet.
Fair enough. I think you're right. I think Sony will get sprinkled in there a little bit, but it'll be a learning curve type of thing. I just love that matchup that Melvin Gordon's got. Like I said, I think we're going to see a lot of the Denver running backs throughout the second half on that one. And so it honestly wouldn't surprise me to see both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams have over 15 carries each in this game. Like, if you told me that that's a possibility for each one of them, I'm not surprised if it comes to fruition there. Let's go ahead, and I got another question coming in. He's got to start two. The options are Robbie Anderson, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Pascal, Mark Ingram in a PPR format.
Ouch. If Michael Pittman plays, then Zach Pascal is one of them. Honestly, Nelson Aguilar might be the guy I'm going to. Robbie Anderson has a horrible track record against the Saints. And that Saints defense is better than we all anticipated. So I think they gotta, I think it's Aguilar. As much as I want to say Robbie Anderson, it's probably Aguilar because I like his matchup a bit better against the Jets, who are not good against the pass. So Pascal, if he's the number two, if Pascal is the only wide receiver for the Colts, then I think you're kind of stuck with Robbie Anderson and Nelson Aguilar. Mark Ingram, he was game script last week. That's why he looks so good. He's not a bad player to have on your roster, but he's not going to be catching a whole lot of passes. And I don't expect the Texans to have a positive game script against the Browns.
No, and the Browns spent a lot of money on defense, and they looked all right. They managed to keep the Chiefs in check for at least a little while there. And let's just be upfront there. The Texans are nowhere near as good as what the Chiefs are on offense there. So I don't see them. I don't see Mark Ingram getting the 26 carries that he got last week. That was really where all of his fantasy value came from, was just the volume. Again, we already covered the Zach Pascal. If Michael Pittman plays, yes, start him. I think he's going to have a sneaky play there. Robbie Anderson, though, like when you looked at it, he had one big breakaway play last week. Wasn't really targeted all that much in that game last week. Didn't really look like he was scripted in much there. So I'm a little leery of Robbie Anderson. As high as I was on him going into draft season, I'm a little leery coming out of week 1. So yeah, for me, it's going to be Zach Pascal, Nelson Aguilar, if I've got to pick between those guys there. Before we get to our next one, we got Peng's Picks. Good friend of the show popping
What's
in,
up, man?
saying hello. Y'all have seen Peng's Picks show up a couple of times in the Sports Me Spicy Take on the Tuesday show. Welcome into the show, Peng. Alrighty, so we've got the next game. Get that pulled up here real quick. And that's the Bengals and the Bears. Spread on this one, 3.5 for Chicago, over under 45.5. What are your thoughts here?
The over in Cincinnati. I need Cincinnati to win this game because I want Justin Fields to play. So I need the Bears to suck as much as possible to start the season, so that way they can start the rightful quarterback and the heir apparent in Chicago and Justin Fields. Like, holy crap, why is Andy Dalton in? Like, there's my rant about the Bears. That being said, the over I think we're going to hit. The Bears are going to be able to move the ball much easier against the Bengals than they were against the Rams. So this game could be much more, not necessarily shootout, but more of a mid to high scoring affair, because the Bengals aren't going to stop anybody, and Joe Burrow is going to continue to toss it around the yard. If Joe Mixon continues his hot streak from week 1, they're going to be putting up points that way, because Joe Mixon had a good week 1 that no one's talking about, myself included, right? Like, I'm not a Joe Mixon apologist. That is your role, Derek. Yep. And that's fine. That's your role. I am not, but he had a really good week 1 that no one's really talking about. And we saw D'Angelo Henderson have a pretty strong game against this Bears defensive line. The Cincinnati offensive line is not as good as the Rams, but Joe Mixon is a better running back than D'Angelo Henderson. So I'm going to call that one a wash. But I think Cincinnati covers, and really, I think Cincinnati wins outright, but I like the over here.
Gotcha. Yeah, this one's a tough one, because I can see it going.
Come on over
way.
to the promised land, man. It feels so good.
Yeah, but the Bengals, it's the Bungles. It's the Bungles. As much as I want to go, okay, all right, Kevin, you talked me into it. I want Joe Burrow to have a good game here. There's several of my fantasy teams that depend on that, including the Scott Fishbowl team, needing Joe Burrow to have a good game. So, all right, we'll go with Cincinnati here. I think it's going to be right, but both of these lines, they did a really good job, I think, setting the lines on this one, to the point where I could see it being almost a push on either one if it wasn't for the half point. So I think you're going to see Cincinnati pull this thing out by 1 or 2 points, and you'll probably be right about 46 points when this thing's all said and done. Like, I see this one being an extremely close game. I think David Montgomery is going to get a ton of run, and he's going to have a phenomenal game. I think this is also a giant bounce back week for Allen Robinson, who did not have a great fantasy showing last week. I think this is the week that you're going to see him pop off and really have that wide receiver 1 type of finish there. And on Cincinnati there, if I've got Tyler Boyd, I'm not looking to necessarily start him in any of my formats there. And I like both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But again, going back to the question from earlier, I'm not starting them if I have both of them on my team there. Alrighty, any other thoughts on this one?
Bring on Justin Fields.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and head on over to the Texans and the Browns. This one is a big spread, 11.5 for the Browns, 48.5 over on the under. What do you got here?
I like the Texans to cover. I don't think the Browns are ready to cover double-digit spreads like this. Good, yes. Elite to cover double-digit spreads, not in my eyes just yet. Tyrod is better than people give him credit for, even with kind of a depleted wide receiver core there in Houston. And if Cleveland gets up by 10 or 14 points, they're going to try and take the air out of the ball, which leads for backdoor covers and all that sort of stuff. So I like the under, because I don't think the Texans are going to be able to put up enough points to hit the over. But I do like them to cover. They could lose by 10, but I still win then.
Right. And that's really where I have this one is a 10-point type of game there. When it's all said and done, it's not going to surprise me if you tell me that, they win right at 10 and the total was 46. Like I can absolutely see that one happening. But if you listen to the show last Friday, we told you that both Tyrod Taylor and Brandon Cooks could have a sneaky big game in that one, and that one ended up proving out right. So again, I could see the same thing happen. Houston is going to have a negative game script in this one. And one thing about Tyrod Taylor, he is either going to run the ball or he is going to throw the ball. So that's kind of where I'm at on this one. I got another.
Isn't that what all quarterbacks do?
No, if some of them fumble it, some of them no. And all right, fair enough. When you look at it,
thanks, Captain Obvious.
He's going to throw the ball deep or run it. Those are the Tyrod options. There's not much of a check down route in Tyrod Taylor's game script. So, but yes, that was definitely Captain Obvious moment. I'll own it. We got Peng's Picks coming in with a question here. He's a little late to the video, but let's throw this one out. We always appreciate the questions there, Peng's Picks. So let's hear this one. How sold are you guys on Corey Davis? Short of one blown coverage TD and Belichick's scheme, do you think he can do it again? And no,
not this week.
Nope.
Not this week. He'll see other big games. Like Corey Davis is the clear alpha on that wide receiver core right now, but this week against Belichick, no, I am sitting him everywhere I have him this week, and then we'll punt and see how week 3 looks.
Well, not only that, he is very much the safety blanket for a young Zach Wilson. That's his first read, and then his second read, and then he looks to try and go off of that one. So I like him down the road. And Kevin kind of brought me onto that board before the season started with the Corey Davis hype train and definitely bought my ticket on that one. But I am not buying it in this week. That is one thing that Bill Belichick and the Patriots do extremely well is take away your best weapon. And in this case, that is Corey Davis. So I don't see him doing much unless, of course, it's one blown coverage type of thing.
And with Mekhi Becton being down, that is going to cause difficulties for Zach Wilson, right? Like a lot of times we don't pay as much of attention to the offensive line, but this is a big deal because the Jets offensive line wasn't very good to begin with, but Becton was kind of the shining star. With him going down, Zach Wilson's not going to have very much time. No. And so unless they completely game script in a bunch of quick slants and Corey Davis can get his targets that way, that's I guess possible, but realistically, that's not what they use him for. That's more of a Elijah Moore type role. So Davis is going to be quiet this week. Yep,
I agree. And Peng, thanks for Peng's Picks FF. Thanks for chiming in there. Love those questions. If you guys have questions, throw them out there. We love talking about these. Love trying to help you guys out with your fantasy questions. So absolutely throw them out there. If you got them, we will answer them. Let's go ahead and head on over to the next one. We've got the Saints going to Carolina. 3.5 spread for New Orleans. The over under 46.5. What are your thoughts here? That's one.
I did so good through the first. Dang it. Defense travels in the NFL, yes. Right? And New Orleans defense is very good. We are also going to get a chance to see how Jameis Winston is probably in a more competitive game and not just being able to sit back, throw the ball, 5 touchdowns and 185 yards again. Like he's probably actually going to have to play some real quarterback for them. And you have the Christian McCaffrey factor, which always I hate taking the under when you're betting against Christian McCaffrey because I feel like he's the one running back in the league who can not score a touchdown, but completely change the outcome of a game.
Well, absolutely. You look at last week, he didn't score a touchdown, but if memory serves right, he was still the number one overall ranked running back for fantasy.
Yeah.
And that's that's without scoring a touchdown. How many guys can you look out there and say, hey, this guy didn't score a touchdown? And you're like, he was outside of the top 12, right? Like Christian McCaffrey's probably the one back in the NFL that can not score a touchdown and finishes as RB1 on the week and win you the week type of thing. So he is a game changer type of player. And that's the thing too, of some of these plays that Carolina has, they have a lot of one touch kind of guys that they have on this roster where you can get the ball to them. They break one, they make somebody miss and they can house it. And that's really, I think, where their shot is going to lie to keep this as a closer game, is really just some big play home run type of ability. But I don't see that necessarily happening. That Saints defense looked really good against the Packers last year. And that, being Aaron Rodgers coming off of an MVP season made him look absolutely not good. So it being a divisional matchup there, I'm going to take the under, and I'm going to take the Saints to cover on this one. And it won't surprise me to see a couple of these guys have big games, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if you told me that DJ Moore, goes 5 for 70 type of thing and has a pretty decent day at the wide receiver. It's not going to surprise me. Christian McCaffrey, I think I've got him ranked running back number 2 overall this week on this one, even with the tough defensive matchup. Jameis is a guy that I've actually got outside of my top 12 rankings right now, just because of how I think the game script's going to go on this one. So could be very interesting when it's all said and done. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Cardinals and the Vikings. Arizona 4.5 point favorites, over under on this one, 51.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Cardinals, but I like the under. I think this Cardinals defense is better than people are giving them credit for. Chandler Jones and 5 sacks. Man. Like, holy smokes, man. Like, the Vikings on defense were not very good after they spent all offseason telling us how much better they were, and they're just not. Kyler Murray is, the favorite to win the MVP after week 1. He's my pick to win MVP preseason, so I kind of have to trust the guy. So I expect him to air it out and let Kyler cook and do the things with Hopkins. And you'll see some AJ Green get splashed in. You might see Christian Kirk again. There's a lot of different options there, but Dalvin Cook's going to have a tough road this week. Their front 4 is pretty good in Arizona. And you got to pick one, right? Is it a Thielen week or is it a Jefferson week? Because I don't think both of them are going to be able to have fantasy success against this Cardinals team.
I think it's Jefferson.
I hope it's Jefferson. I need Jefferson to have a big week selfishly, but I do think the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals win. I think it's the under though. I don't see 51.5 being scored.
I actually could see that one happening because of some of the playmakers again that Minnesota has, but I think the Cardinals are going to, like, if you tell me that Arizona scores 40 in this one, I'm not going to be surprised when it's all said and done, right? Like, they've got the playmakers on the outside. DeAndre Hopkins is just a beast. And I think Christian Kirk is a really nice, sneaky DFS type of play. Like, I really like him in a lot of formats out there. Chase Edmonds is another guy that I kind of like in some DFS type of plays there. And Kyler is Kyler. So that being said, I see some very big things there. I also like the fact that Minnesota, while Dalvin's going to struggle running the ball, I think they're going to get him involved and have it game scripted out for him to get involved in the passing work. So I still see him having a decent fantasy day, not a great fantasy day, but a decent fantasy day coming off of, PPR type of work is really how I see that one playing out.
What would surprise you more? The Arizona Cardinals scoring 30 or more points, or the Minnesota Vikings scoring 10 or less points?
10 or less points.
Okay. I just feel like this is the Kirk Cousins shit the bed special that we see once or twice every season. Like, and I do not have any sort of statistical analysis to back that up on him changing time zones and playing, in indoor-outdoor stadium. It's not that. It's just kind of that gut feeling that this could really be a struggle for Kirk Cousins in a game that I just get a feeling where he could lay a dud and disappoint some people.
Yeah. You very well might be right. Here's why it wouldn't surprise me, is because I could see Justin Jefferson breaking one off and scoring a long touchdown, and then being able to sustain a drive where Dalvin Cook can make somebody miss and get into the end zone on a 10-yard type of pass type of deal. So like, it really wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, it's not going to surprise me if Arizona hangs 40 points on them. But it would surprise me more that Minnesota gets 10 or less on there. So I like Arizona to cover this one, and I like the over on it. So very cool. Let's go ahead and head on over to the next game that we've got on the slate, and that is the Falcons. So the Falcons are going to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a big spread on this one, 12.5 points, the over under 52.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
Man, I see the over. I don't know if Tampa Bay covers this 12.5 though. Like, as a professional in any industry, you have a sense of pride, right, about your work and your craft. The Falcons were embarrassed in week 1, like just straight embarrassed in their home opener. This is a divisional matchup. A lot of times these games are fun. We saw what Dak was able to do, getting the ball out quick, getting the ball out wide. Tampa Bay is a little weaker in the secondary, as they have some guys who are injured and going to be missing some time here. So I like Calvin Ridley this week. And I could see the over being hit by the end of the third quarter, honestly. It's just a matter of hell. I'm going to say the Falcons cover, because 12.5 is still a big number to get to. But I do think the over is going to be pretty easy to hit.
Yeah, I think you could see Tampa Bay with the way that offense was clicking last week, and the Falcons actually probably have a worse defense than what the Cowboys do. They're not.
Oh, hell yeah.
They're not great at causing turnovers, and that was one of the things that kept that Dallas team in that game, was they forced turnovers. I see a much more efficient game coming from the Tampa Bay offense, to the point where they could put up a massive, massive point number on this one. Tom Brady just flat out eating. I see this being probably a little bit more, right? Like, this is one of those that when I look at the wide receiver room on this, like, who do you play type of thing? Do you play Evans? Do you play Godwin? Do you play Antonio Brown? Do you play Gronk? And I'm going to take the Gronk in my tight end type of spot if I've got him.
Play all of them. You play all of them. You could see every single one of those guys with a touchdown.
Right.
And really not have anything against it. Like, in my mind, you play all of them. I think Evans bounces back. I think he has a better game than he did against the Cowboys. I think Chris Godwin is still the target share leader when all things are equal across the board. But you could see Gronk getting into the end zone again, and Antonio Brown, busting another double move and getting behind the defense. Like, all this stuff, you're playing everybody from Tampa Bay. Like, and even I would even play the running backs if I was stuck on a choice. Like, I would play Fournette or Rojo in a flex spot. If you have to start like 2 flex options, I would play them and at least feel like I had a shot, because this Atlanta Falcons defense is bad. But you might as well. It's probably the most, if not the second most high-powered offense in the NFL.
Right. Yes. I just don't know that I trust Atlanta to put up enough points to do that. So I'm going to take the under on this one. And I do think that the Buccaneers are going to, I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take the Bucs to cover. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think the Falcons are out of the game by halftime, and you're going to see you're going to see a very boring half of football in the second half of this one. So that's how I'm seeing that one. But I do see the Buccaneers putting up enough points and having enough of a fireworks show in the first half that all of your fantasy options will be very relevant still. Let's go ahead and head on over into the next one. You have got the Tennessee Titans playing the Seattle Seahawks, and it's in Seattle, 5.5-point favorites for the home team, over under 52.5. What are your thoughts here?
Tennessee is another team that kind of got embarrassed week one. The Cardinals came in there and really kind of whooped them up. I think the Seahawks will try and do more of the same that what the Cardinals did, but I do think the Titans will respond a little bit better. I think they will find ways to get Derrick Henry going. I think A.J. Brown will show up in a little bit more dominant fashion here. So I like the Seahawks to win the game. I do think Tennessee covers. And I like the over in this one barely. Like, the Seattle defense isn't dominant, or let me reword this, isn't dominant enough to keep Tennessee at bay the entire game. And again, you have a franchise that got embarrassed. They're going to have a pride factor about them, and they're going to look to try and right the ship here in week 2. So Seattle wins, but Tennessee covers and the over.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that. I'll take that as well. Tennessee to cover the over, but I do see some very big games happening for 2 Seattle wide receivers, and that being DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like you said last week, the Titans secondary is bad, and it's not going to surprise me if you told me on Monday that both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were right around 100 yards receiving for the both of them. It's not going to surprise me. I can see Russell Wilson airing this thing out and hitting on a couple of long bombs to both of those guys, and both of those guys putting up just a massive point total. I think Tennessee realized that they have got to get Derrick Henry rolling, because if they can't get him rolling, all those play action passes that Ryan Tannehill does and is uber efficient with just isn't going to work. So again, I see a bounce back game for those guys, but I see those Seattle wide receivers just feasting this week. Go ahead and head on over to the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to Los Angeles, playing the Chargers. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites, with the over-under being 52.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I want to see how the Cowboys respond after a tough loss in week 1 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had 3 extra days to prepare for this game. But the Cowboys are now down their best defensive player and La'el Collins. So they're missing key pieces on both sides of the ball. So that is going to be a little bit different for them. Man, oh man. This 2.5 sucks. Like, I like the over again. Like, I think Dak showed that he can kind of play against any defense, that's not going to bother him. We like the Chargers and them being able to get Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and even Mike Williams involved in this. So I like the Chargers offense in this one. So I do like the over here. If I have to make a choice, I'm going to say that Dak Prescott finds a way to get the Cowboys to 500 this week, and that he won't let them go 0-2. But I am not going to be able to put up a strong argument for someone who says I'm crazy and the Chargers are going to win this game at home.
But this one here is kind of a 50-50 split in my mind. And I've got this one so close to the point that it's whatever team has the ball the last drive, I see that's the team that's going to win. Like, that's kind of how I see this one playing out. I do think that this will be a bit of a fireworks show. The Chargers do have a good defense, but they're not as good as what they just faced in Tampa Bay. And so I really could see that playing out there. I think Dak has a good game. You've got You've got Dallas getting a little bit healthier on their line. I think Zeke's going to have a much better game this week than we had last week. So a bit of a bounce back game there. And I think you're going to see those Dallas wide receivers just eat again on this one. So I like the Cowboys. I think I like the Cowboys to win this one, and taking the over there as well. But I do also, the biggest question mark that I have as well is, will the Chargers feature Austin Eckler in almost that Alvin Kamara role that we kind of thought coming into the season? Because looking at it last week, he got a goal line touch to score a touchdown, but really didn't have any work in the passing game. So that's a big question mark for me there. We got a comment coming in here. The Chargers will cover. Eckler will have 8 to 10 receptions after 0 in week 1. So YouTube comment there is telling me that, answer my question on that Eckler role there. So I like it. Kevin, we got 2 games left. We're heading into the Sunday night game here, and this one should be a lot of fun to watch. Kansas City going to Baltimore. KC's favored by 2.5. The over-under 55.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like Kansas City to cover. I think I actually like the under in this one. Like this, this seems like a game, right? We're so pumped up. We have all these offensive weapons and everything else. Like, I wouldn't argue people betting the over, but where I would slide it in is the under here. There's a lot of things that can happen or that need to happen to get to a 55 game total. And not that it can't with, especially with Kansas City and their high profile explosive offense, but it could be to the point where Kansas City milks the clock a little bit, trying to keep Lamar off the field. Kansas City's pass defense is actually really good. Where they struggle is against the run, so that does help Baltimore a little bit in Lamar's ability to get outside. But we saw last week against the Raiders that Lamar still struggles to get the ball down the field when he needs to. He looks around. He doesn't feel comfortable throwing into NFL type windows, it seems like. And it's not a thing that you can just fix overnight, right? Like he's had 4 seasons now to work on this, and there's still something about it. Yes, he's a pretty accurate thrower when he needs to be, but he does still like his receivers wide open. He does not do well when trying to force the ball into tight windows. So I'm going to take the under and be kind of contrarian to what most of the industry is saying. But I do like the Chiefs to cover.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs to cover as well. I think that you're going to see, I do think that you're going to see a lot of what you just said there, where you'll have a lot of plays put into this game scripted in a way to try and keep both quarterbacks off of the field and keep the opposing offense off the field. So this could be a kind of a run slugfest type of thing, to the point where you'll get some of those big splash plays. You'll see some of these things happen where they'll put up some points. And, if you tell me that when this thing's all said and done, that this one ended, 30 to 24 or 27 to 24 type of thing, it's not going to surprise me. You're going to be really close to that, but I think you're still going to come in just under. We got another comment coming in here from Boston on the YouTube. KC run defense looked invisible last week. Baltimore will just run on them and keep Mahomes off the field. And yep, I would agree that that's going to be the game plan going in there as well. So any other thoughts on this Sunday night game?
No, it should be fun. This is the one that fans just want to see, right? Like It wouldn't surprise me if this is the highest viewership of a Sunday night game all season long. Just because it has a lot of star power. It has different teams than your traditional Patriots, Packers, even the Saints, the Cowboys. So you do have a different mix. So you're pulling in some different fan bases on top of the casual fan that'll watch it no matter who's playing. So I expect it to be extremely entertaining. And we'll just kind of see how the game script shakes out for these guys.
Yeah. And this is one of those two that does Lamar Jackson finally get Patrick Mahomes in a head-to-head matchup. We'll have to see how that one plays out. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Monday night game, and that's Detroit at Green Bay. 10.5 point favorites are the Packers. Over-under is 49.5 points. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think that the Packers will right the ship from last week. Another team that was embarrassed. Aaron Rodgers got pulled right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, right at the end of the third quarter, for Jordan Love. And sitting over there, they've been answering questions about the tension between Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. They've been answering questions on, is this team extremely overhyped? They've been, all the things. And this just seems like a prime opportunity for the reigning MVP to come in and set the record straight. I almost feel bad for Detroit. because I think the Packers are going to put up Star Wars type numbers in this game. I think Aaron Jones has a bounce back game. He's my start of the week, as we covered on our Tuesday show, and it's definitely Green Bay. I think they cover the 10.5 in order to kind of send a message that, hey, it was just a bad week. We're not a bad team, and it's their home opener here. So I like the over. I like Green Bay by the 10.5, and Detroit is just going to have to throw the ball a ton to keep in the game. So I like TJ Hawkinson too. I think he's going to see a lot of targets come his way again. So Hawkinson's the one guy that I do like from them. DeAndre Swift is a good play because the Packers run defense isn't very good. We saw that last week with Kamara and Tony Jones. So I like DeAndre Swift. If you're in a super deep league, 16 team league, that type of deal, I understand why you need to start Williams in a flex position, possibly to try and get something out of there. I'm not opposed to that, at least for the first half. If he can get some run in the first half, you'll be all right. But come second half, you're going to see a lot of targets to the running backs and a crap ton of targets to TJ Hawkinson for Detroit to try and stay in this.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I do think that I do like the bounce back narrative on that one. That's how I do see this one playing out. I think this one is this is going to be really close to that 10.5 point deal. Like I'm going to take the under or take the Lions to cover when it's all said and done. I see it being right at a 10 point, right? So that half point is what's going to scare me off to say that the Lions are going to lose by 10 is how I see that. And I think you're probably going to see right around 50 points scored in this thing. So, wouldn't surprise me if this game ends 30-20 when it's all said and done. So that's kind of how I'm calling the shot, 30-20 on that one. So I'll take the over and I'll take the Packers to win by about 10. So Lions to cover there. Another comment coming in. Green Bay pass D is okay. The Packers run D is not good. Detroit will have the same game script as last week. The Lions cover. I could see that one happening there, right? Like they're going to have a similar game script, I think, to what they had last week to stay competitive in a lot of games.
This is what we thought when the Lions were not with the Lions, when the Packers played the Vikings the first game of the season last year, right? Like the Vikings will just take the air out of the ball. They'll run it with Dalvin Cook. But if they can't break off the big runs early in the game, and if Aaron Rodgers is on a mission, I mean, hell, the Green Bay Packers put up 28 points on the Vikings last year, mid-second quarter, and you have to abandon the run at that point. And so that's my only fear with that is, yes, that's all accurate. Their run defense is not very good, but if the game gets out of hand, you have to abandon the run. There's no way for you to get caught up if you're just willing to go, 4 or 5 yards in a cloud of dust. It just takes too long.
Right. Now, that being said, it's not going to surprise me if both those Detroit running backs have a pretty decent game for fantasy because of the fact that they are both good pass catchers out of the backfield. And guess what? Jared Goff will check down and hit the open guy and let them try and make a play and move. So it wouldn't surprise me to see both of those guys have very relevant fantasy weeks when it's all said and done. But I think 30-20 is about kind of how I see this one playing out there. Kevin, that's going to take us down to the end of our slate of matchups here. Any other thoughts? Anything else? Look ahead for the weekend here.
Honestly, it should be a good slate, right? I mean, there's Vegas getting paid for Vegas type things, right? They're thinking that there's going to be a lot of close games after they saw week one play out. We're looking to see if teams can bounce back after bad week ones. We're looking to see if teams can kind of repeat performance type thing. Are you as good as you put on tape after week one? So this is always a fun situation in the season, right? You get an early look at pretenders and contenders type deal just based off of how can you handle success or defeat early in the season. And quite frankly, if you look at statistics year over year, teams that go 0-2 while they can make the playoffs, it is pushing a big rock uphill. So there is early playoff implications on the line when you're fighting against historical data like that.
What game are you most excited to watch over this weekend?
Broncos game. I'm watching my home team, man.
Now make the non-hometown pick.
I think I think it's probably a tie between the Cowboys, Chargers, and the Chiefs and Ravens. There's so many fun fantasy players in that Cowboys Chargers game that if it's half the game we think it could be, it'll be a lot of fun to watch. And anytime you get to watch Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson, that's just built-in entertainment. So get your popcorn ready. The back end of Sunday will probably be much better than the first half, as we kind of covered. The early slate of games is a lot of low-scoring affairs. So we might have to wait until the back end of Sunday to really have some fun and watch exciting football, but it's football nonetheless.
Absolutely. And we've got a great slate of games for college on tomorrow there. So some good fun matchups there. A lot of just fun football ahead on the weekend here. So I'm very excited for that. Guys, if you haven't done so already, on the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, ring the bell. We do this show live 3 times a week right now, where we go live Tuesday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern, Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern. And then we bring you a Sunday morning show at 11:45 a.m. on the Eastern time zone there. So hop onto YouTube, ring that bell, click the subscribe button. One of the best ways to support this independent show and podcast there. Kevin, any final thoughts for the listeners and viewers?
Have fun and good luck. As always, hit us up. We love answering questions and interacting with everybody. So if you have lineup decisions, trade decisions, even late waiver wire pickups, if you had a guy that got dinged up in the walkthrough, twisted his ankle going through walkthroughs, like we love to help out. So feel free to hit us up. We'll give you all the information we can to help you make the best decision possible for your team.
Absolutely. And the best place to hit us up is on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. You can send us a DM over there, ask your lineup questions. We'll get back to you as quickly as we can. And typically we're pretty darn fast at getting those answers to you. So love those questions coming in. One final one coming in here. It looks like college football question. Why is Bama only 14-point favorites? He's saying it's easy money. They're playing against your rival down there in Florida. What are your thoughts here?
Oh, screw the Gators. That's what I think about my rival down south there. So no, I would agree. I think Alabama covers that 14 pretty easily. Not quite sure why they're buying the Florida hype. They've never been able to hold it close against Alabama here over the last 4 or 5 seasons. I don't think this is going to be any different. So Bama by 14 easily.
Yeah, well, Bama looked absolutely fantastic through the first couple sets of games here. So yeah, I'm right there with you. But guys, you hit us up on our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. Make sure you hop over onto the YouTube channel and click the subscribe button on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. For Kevin, I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.